To continue with their protest action today, students across the board are unhappy about tuition fees and registration fees, which they say have now become unaffordable. SASCO will today hold a mass meeting at Cape Town Peninsula University of Technology, Tuks and the UKZN to plan nationwide protests tomorrow. Joining us in the studio today is the South African Students' Congress President, Ntuthuko Makhombothi. Ntuthuko, very good morning to you and welcome.
Morning, Elvis.
Thank you for joining us here. First and foremost, tell me about the status of the current protest on the ground.
Well, today we are continuing with our protest at Wits University. Students are continuing at UCT. We have students also at Stellenbosch and CPUT and other institutions across the country, even UJ, sitting meetings right now to discuss a way forward.
Is this a concerted effort by all universities, or is it pre-planned?
Well, we are trying to mobilize as many universities to come on board in the struggle because we are all affected by these exorbitant student fees that have been hiked. And we are calling on students that if we are united across the country, we'll definitely be able to put much more pressure on the system and the powers that be to ensure that these hikes don't happen.
What sort of systems do you utilize to coordinate all of this? Because it seems like it's all coordinated throughout the country.
Well, students have in all institutions, but we also have our structures across the board. But SRCs in all these institutions are playing a very critical role to ensure that these students are led, and we are ensuring that we meet students in their residences during the afternoon, but also mobilize those who are coming into campus during the day. But
I would like to find out in depth, how do you mobilize them? Do you utilize mobile media, or what do you do?
Well, we do use a lot of social media, and I think that has come as a very useful instrument these days. I mean, the hashtag, fees must fall campaign is moving quite well, and it's trending across the country, and it's assisting us to mobilize students. I mean, even other students are engaged with us in social media, be it Facebook, everywhere, talking about these issues, some sharing their experiences about how these fees are affecting them.
Now let's get down. How do we find then solutions that will be practical and beneficial for both the students as well as the institutions? Because we must all face this. There is hikes, and yes, life is expensive and students must pay for their university tuition.
Well, we don't agree that, firstly, poor students and working class students should pay for their tuition. Education is a right. And
not a privilege.
And it's not a privilege, it's a right. Higher education is a right, it's enshrined in our constitution. And we think that the commodification of education itself must be contested, because you can't put a price tag to education. It's a basic human right. I mean, if you want people to succeed in their personal life, and if you want them to have much more better opportunities towards employment, you need to give them higher education. And that is why we are saying, but I mean, practically what we are saying right now is that we've been looking at fee increments over the past 5 years. They've been way above, inflation. And these fees, and students have had to bear the brunt of this. Universities must come on board, but also government must increase its funding for institutions of higher learning. And we also need the private sector to be playing a role. I think there's a serious deafening silence of the private sector and its role in all of this.
Now, a task team was set up by the President to deal with these issues. Are you part of that task team as SASCO?
No, well, the students are represented by the South African Union of Students, which is a body of all SRCs across the country, and we think that we have that representation. But we want that committee to really, take its work urgently now with these current challenges we are facing.
But Ntuthuko, you must consider and realize that there is administrative costs for universities. They pay salaries. There's people that they need to pay salaries on a monthly basis. So how do you then balance the two between free education and fees?
Well, definitely. That's why we're saying South Africa can afford to fund free education. I mean, the department has released a study that says, it could cost us within the next 3 years about 37 billion rands. We are saying, one, we need to reprioritize government's budget at the moment. We understand the constraints, and we understand that, we have those fiscal challenges. But if we can reprioritize, because we are looking at education right now as an expenditure item rather than an investment in our economy. I mean, it's a serious, economic growth driver. But also we are saying we need to look at the skills levy currently, amend the Skills and Development Levy, Skills and Development Act in South Africa to increase the skills levy so that we can be able to take that money. I mean, it's a 1% at the moment. If we take it to 2%, we can be able to ring-fence that money towards free education and also progressive taxation. I mean, we had Professor Piketty talking about inequalities here in South Africa now. And one of the things that he's raising and that we have always been raising is an issue of a wealth tax. And that wealth tax, we could use it to leverage and how we fund higher education. We're not just saying that, well, free education and the money is not going to come from anywhere. We're saying that there should be interventions that are done The private sector currently is funding historically white universities, but not funding, historically black universities at all. So we need to extend a hand and pull them to really fund.
Lastly, and very briefly, exams are around the corner. That's coming up. Isn't this going to have a negative impact on the students?
We are very, very concerned about the question of exams. That's why we're putting much more pressure now so that we can be able to get what we want as quickly as possible and get back to class and be able to prepare for our examinations.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
That was the SASCO president here in studio with us, the South African Student Congress president, Ntuthuko Makhombothi. Now,